Canada is actually saving a bunch of money. We're in a surplus, and we have recently found a very mutually prosperous deal with America, is what I wish I could be saying on one of these videos. But in fact, this particular video is the exact opposite. Instead of saving money, Canada, specifically Carney, is spending billions more dollars, recently announced today, and America is saying, yeah, I don't even know if we're really going to find a deal with Canada, and I don't really know if we're interested in finding a deal with Canada. So yeah, sorry for that plot twist and that roller coaster of emotions, but hey, this is Canada, and it's we're on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't even know. If you're not laughing, you're almost crying. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I really want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already, please. Before they start tariffing subscriptions, which are free. I don't even know how they would, but I feel like they would. And since we are talking about tariffs, I gotta say, my wife has been going on Temu, whatever the hell it's called. And she just got this. Look at this. A little sign to say, I love you. That's super cool. So I keep that now on my desk. It's also a little chip clip. Very neat. Anyways, thank you. And without further ado, let's get into the news, because there's a lot of it and none of it is really good. Like none at all. So here we go. Starting off with what's going on in America. Apparently, President Trump is threatening to take over Washington, D.C. governance. I mean, probably rightfully so. U.S. President Trump said on Tuesday that the federal government could take control of Washington, D.C. if the local government doesn't get its act together, with his comments coming in a social media post complaining about crime in the U.S. Capitol, something that Canada can somewhat relate to. Very much so. The law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults, in quotation marks, and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14, Trump said in his post. If DC doesn't get its act together, and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city, Trump has said. And I just kind of want to pass the question off to you. What do you feel about this? Today was actually a really big day for Trump, saying a bunch of stuff on social media, like above average normal, because in a previous post or a previous interview earlier today, Trump tells reporters that he wants to run again in 2028. He just doesn't know if he will, which is kind of crazy. And so since we are on that topic, I do want to pose the question to you guys. Would you support Trump running again in 2028? I know it seems like legally it's impossible, since you can only serve 2 terms as a president. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like if anyone could do it, it's probably him. I just don't know how the backlash would kind of, that might start some shit in America. But I'd love to know what you guys think, regardless, down below. Then in Canadian news, we got to talk about the Air Canada strike, because it's getting crazy, and they actually voted on it. So more than 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants are poised for a possible strike. It's actually now been confirmed in a week and a half after members voted in favor of strike action, according to the union representing the flight attendants. Air Canada flight attendants approve strike mandate. Air Canada flight attendants have voted 99.7% in favor of strike action if necessary, their union said on Tuesday, in a move that could allow them to walk off the job as early as this month. The Canada Union of Public Employees said in a statement it could give a 72-hour strike notice as early as August 16th after negotiations hit an impasse with the airline in July. Such a vote is required for legal job action, but does not necessarily mean the flight attendants will go on strike. The union represents over 10,000 flight attendants at Air Canada and its leisure service, Air Canada Rouge. Flight attendants have had a chance to weigh in and tell the company it's time to get serious about negotiating, said Wesley Losana, president of Air Canada component of COOP, in a statement. Flight attendants in Canada and the U.S. are asking for higher wages and compensation for all their time work, challenging contracts to pay for time in the air, but not when they arrive before boarding. Air Canada said the issue of ground time is being discussed with the union as part of the conversation around overall compensation. How are they not? Like, if you're on the clock working, then you should be getting paid. I can't believe that flight attendants were not getting paid for showing up at the airport, going through security and all that stuff to go do the job. I mean, it's a little weird, but this does pose a bigger issue in Canada. A bunch of major infrastructure, we're going to call it, like Canada Post, now Air Canada, have been going on strike. Even the largest union in Canada took the biggest strike ever in Canadian history, like last year or the year prior, the PSAC strike. Like, it just seems like Canada is crumbling little by little by little. And I'm just kind of feeling a little bit demoralized. And it gets worse. So if we shift out of the public side, or, you know, strikes and stuff like that, and we take a look at what's going on with specifically the Ontario government, Doug Ford is bragging about the fact that Ontario, only Ontario, has brought in such instrumentally large amount of migrants. Yeah, I didn't hesitate on what I said. I didn't stumble or stutter. Hear Doug Ford say it himself.
Ontario is the fastest growing region in North America, bar none. Last year, we brought in over 800,000 people. So we're bringing more people than both Texas and Florida combined.
We're bringing in more people than Texas and Florida combined. I don't really know how that is like a winning thing to say. I personally don't view it that way. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. But that can probably be felt by people who are living in Ontario going, yeah, no, that shit has got to stop. Like, everybody everywhere is feeling it. It once, not too long ago, and arguably still is kind of now, racist to talk about how much immigration is going on in this country. You can't discriminate against immigration. How dare you? Dude, even people that have legally immigrated here like 20, 30 years ago are seeing immigration as a problem in this country right now. So no, it's not racist. I mean, pending your approach to it per se, but if you're just saying immigration is kind of ruining our country right now, that is not a racist thing. It's actually quite factual, but I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. It just feels like it's a banana republic, like the gates are open and they're being flooded and there's no end in sight. But we're going to shift away from that. Now we're going to take a look at the fun stuff like tariffs and how we're being screwed on all levels. Brian Lilly from the Toronto Sun actually nails it in 21 seconds. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
Clean them out with these kind of tariffs. We need a deal. We need to be realistic and not petulant children who think that it's always better to fight with the Americans than work with them. But that attitude plays for a lot of Canadians, especially in the laptop class or retirees who don't have to worry about making sure that they've got a job next week.
So it's actually not just the liberals and the laptop class of retirees that think that it's good to stand up to America and pick fights with America. It's actually a kind of common thing within conservative supporters. And that's just because the conservatives at the federal level and actually all provincial levels, even Doug Ford, the largest provincial conservative, premier, not because he's morbidly obese with his reputation, fat pig with rabies, but because Ontario has just shit tons of people that live there. Every politician across the country has taken somehow unanimously the approach of we got to stand up to America. We got to fight back or even shut their power off or even take their liquor off of our shelves because that'll teach them a lesson, even though we've already paid for it. Like, it's very bizarre. And I personally want to see politicians say, well, we should try to be bridging the gap between America and Canada. We should talk about an economic merger, join military bases, bringing American companies, capitalism into our country, which should create jobs, add more infrastructure. Like, it's a win-win-win. But for some reason, our politicians don't view it that way. But now let's take a look at what CBC has to say in a recent broadcast.
Kate, what do you make of the fact that, the Friday, August 1st deadline has come and gone? How would you sort of assess the position Canada is in at this moment, given that these tariffs have gone up? There are broad carve-outs under the current tariff regime. But, some tariffs did go up, and those baseline tariffs when it comes to steel, aluminum, and the challenges related to tariffs for the auto industry, copper, it's still a very difficult moment. But how would you sort of assess how we got to this moment and where we are right now?
Yeah, we're in a definitively weakened position today than we were April 28th or August 1st. We have more tariffs, to your point, Katie, than we did since the last election. We have that new copper tariff. And based on the ambassador's comments, based on the prime minister's comments, it doesn't seem to me that we are necessarily further along in the renegotiation of that deal. So this is where the prime minister is going to run into a challenge. He was the one that laid out for Canadians during the election campaign that he would get a deal done and that this was a top priority. Now we are being told to be patient and that we can't take a bad deal. And I don't know how it can be both the greatest economic crisis of our lifetime, as the prime minister has claimed, but also simultaneously that patience is a virtue. So I think the prime minister is going to come under some continued challenge here as he tries to make the case that he is the right guy, but that really this very urgent crisis that absolutely demanded the attention of our nation can be dealt with sometime in 2026. I don't know why Canadians would buy that Donald Trump is going to be all that different a negotiator in a broader Kuzma renegotiation than how he's proving to be right now.
No, Kuzma is not going to save us. It really won't. And politicians that are giving that false hope that Kuzma is going to save us, they're just lying to themselves and their audience and passing the buck further and further in order to, reduce panic right now. I don't really know how else to say it, but it's getting pretty bad out there. And in a recent press conference that actually took place just like a couple hours ago, Mark Carney had quite the things to say, specifically in terms of how much money we're spending on combating the tariffs by supporting our own. Let's have a look at this.
Opportunity with Minister Hodgson, Secretary of State Fuhr. Today I'm announcing a series of new measures to help the softwood lumber industry pivot to a growing Canadian market and to the markets of reliable trading partners around the world. The first pillar is to give our companies that need liquidity, that liquidity in order to address immediate pressures. To do so, we'll provide up to $700 million in loan guarantees. This will ensure that forestry companies of all sizes have the competitive financing they need to maintain and restructure, if necessary, their operations during a period of profound transformation.
So this is a weird position to be in because sometimes it's actually quite beneficial for the government to bail out our own industries if it's like a real legitimate attack, right? Let's say war breaks out and Canada's supply chain gets completely interrupted by Russia or China or whatever it is, like actual wartime with like real freaking enemies, then yeah, the Canadian government paying money to fill the gaps where some of those places that have been affected is kind of a good thing. It sucks because it's at the taxpayer's expense, but we take care of our own. But in this instance, this is particularly avoidable because the tariffs are being put on us because of this guy. So this guy is now saying, well, I punched ourselves in the dick and now we're going to sell ice packs to each other. Like, it's just very bizarre. A deal with America is not going to be like a deal that we've ever had. That's just objectively a fact. We can stand up with our elbows nice and high, or we can bicker about it on social media and X and he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. It's just the reality. Like, Trump is not fucking around. He's made that very clear, and he's making an example out of Canada, the longest and largest trading partner with that country. If that's not a clear indication as to what the hell we're up against, then I don't know any other reality check. I mean, everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the face, and we're being punched in the face, right? That's exactly what's going on. So this waiting and waiting and waiting and passing the buck further and further, and this false hope and bailing out our own. I get bailing out our own, but in this instance, again, it's just avoidable. They could rush to make a deal, but instead they're spending billions of dollars on, yes, rightfully so, helping our own. We don't want to see our own people suffer, but they're suffering because of our government. And it's weird gaslighting. You see the harm that America's doing, the harm that they're doing. Well, yeah, that's why we need to stand up to them. The more we stand up, the more pain is going to be caused, the more we're going to have to be bailing out our own. And all of a sudden now we're in a further and further deficit, and the budget won't have to balance itself because the budget will be blamed on Trump, on America, and liberal voters or people that think that America and Trump is the bad guy are going to buy into it. And we're going to live in this perpetual cycle of debt and blaming America as the bad guy. And that's the problem with Canada, is this weird elitism shit.
Second, to make the softwood lumber industry more competitive for the long term, we will provide an additional $500 million, largely in grants and contributions to supercharge new product development and new market diversification. Products such as reinforced timber and low-carbon wood fiber-based insulation materials that are used in prefabricated and modular housing. These investments will increase domestic processing and value added, particularly as technology changes the way we build. This new funding will include initiatives to support Indigenous-led forestry business development and diversification, something that Gorman has stood behind for decades. Third, we will be our own best customer.
Yeah, that doesn't make us rich, though. Right? That it's like saying we're going to have the biggest pool by just circulating our own water instead of bringing in more water, expanding our land, and then filling said land with more water to make a bigger pool. You can't grow from yourself like that. I mean, it's good. It'll help ourselves with cheaper costs of living and all that stuff. Phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but we're not going to make ourselves richer by selling shit to ourselves. Like, unless I'm missing something, and I very well could be. I'm borderline an idiot, but I just don't see how that's like the all-star long-term plan.
By relying more on Canadian lumber, Canadian softwood for Canadian projects. Canada's new government has a strong mandate to get big things built faster. That means millions of more homes, major new ports, new trade corridors, new energy projects. And as we build bigger and faster, we will build Canadian.
Oh my goodness. Who's writing this guy's speeches? We're going to do things big and fast, and we're going to make them for ourselves. Hoorah. Like, what a freaking weird little pump up conversation he's having. It's just weird. I understand that we should be our own customer, but to say that that's like the best thing that we have to look forward to. No, I want other people's money. I want money from other countries. I want to sell our stuff to other countries to make us a wealthier country so that we can actually do those things and create high-speed railways, increase or, start to fix our one and only rail system across the country via rail, which is very weird, very archaic. We're living in like the Stone Ages when you've got drone shows that happen every night in China, in different places around China, to do these old dragon kung fu art shows that are like way better than fireworks, like fireworks on steroids, but with controllable drones. Like, that's the shit that I want here. Real cool stuff. But hey, yeah, sure, we'll just be our biggest customer, and that's all we have to look forward to. We don't even have deals with other countries. In fact, our biggest deal which was supposed to be LNG with Japan, that went to America. So again, it's very weird. The liberals are just mismanaging this country. But now let's take a look at what he has to say about meeting with Trump.
Hi, Prime Minister Carney. Brady Strachan, CBC Kelowna. Have you spoken to Donald Trump in recent days, and will you retaliate with more counter tariffs, including on American steel, or countermeasures or lift countermeasures already in place?
Thank you for the question. I haven't spoken to the president in recent days. We'll speak when it makes sense. With respect to steel specifically, we announced a comprehensive approach on steel 2 weeks ago, which included significant support for repositioning, significant support for Buy Canadian, and with respect to, if I can draw some distinctions, with respect to softwood lumber, obviously the core of the demand domestically, not all of it, but the core of the demand, or much of the increase in demand, can be through our new approach to home building in this country. With steel, the defense procurement comes into play. The broader infrastructure investments is part of our building national projects of national significance and the requirements we'll have around those. So we had those elements there, plus some industry repositioning. So we feel, look, it's a challenging position. We have put in place a series of measures, and I would add one other thing, which I think is it's relevant. I know it's relevant for Canada, but I would submit that it's very relevant for the United States. We've also put in place the toughest measures against foreign steel that could be dumped into Canada or transshipped through Canada to other markets. So again, I just wrap that into the broader discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, TLDR, the long story is they don't have a plan, and this is getting out of hand, and Canada is going to be made of an example by the United States. Only 2 countries in the entire world decided, you know what, we're going to stand up to America, and we're going to fight the tariffs. That's China, go figure, and Canada. That's poetic on its own. And here we are fighting the good fight, right? With higher cost of living, and American officials that quite literally are saying, we don't really care about Canada's trade negotiations. It's on the back burner. And well, instead of me telling you, let's just take a look at what White House officials are saying, because it's getting pretty bad.
CTV's senior political correspondent Mike Lacouture has more on the state of the trade talks from the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Mike.
Ambassador, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
It's good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So what are you hearing about the state of negotiations between Canada and the U.S. right now?
It's going to take a while to work through it. There's a lot of issues that are still on the table. And, you know, I think the next few weeks are going to kind of be slow. But, you know, the president's got some other priorities. They want to get a deal done with China. And so, but, you know, as soon as there's, you know, offers on the table, ready to move forward, you know, we'll want to get to a deal.
So you're saying Canada's not a priority right now?
The president has, you know, has talked about wanting to get to China. Sure, Canada's a priority, but I mean, there's a whole lot of countries that are priorities. But right now, you know, I think the opportunity area right now is to do something potentially with China.
I want to talk about that timeline. You said a number of weeks. Are we thinking month? 2 months? Like, how much should Canadian businesses really be looking at right now as an outside or even an inside time? They're looking for time frames. They want to know how soon this can get going and how soon this can be rectified. If you had to give an idea, because you just said a number of weeks might be quiet, are we looking at months?
I'm not going to speculate on this. I mean, this is an agreement that could come together very, very quickly, or it could stretch out, because there are, I think, even as the Prime Minister said, these are complex negotiations, and sometimes, you know, these things come together, the puzzle pieces fit together very quickly, and other times you're just kind of looking at it and, yeah, how do I put this all together? And it takes longer. I think, you know, most of us would like to get to an agreement as soon as possible.
Are we at that stage where we're still looking at puzzle pieces and trying to figure out how they fit together, or is there a path and we just have to actually get them together?
I think you're still looking at some puzzle pieces, yes, and how they fit together.
What are those puzzle pieces that they still need to try and figure out how they get together?
Again, that's for the exact, I mean, you got to look at, you know, what is the base level of tariffs? How are you going to handle USMCA? We're on different, you know, we're on a different page on USMCA. The U.S. has held USMCA kind of sacrosanct. Okay, we have not put any tariffs on USMCA goods or services. Why? Because that, you know, the end result is that the effective tariff rate on all goods and services going across from Canada to the U.S., it's only at like 5%. Okay.
Well, 85 are not are not touched by it. That's what the Prime Minister said today, that 85% of the trade between Canada and the U.S.
Yeah. And other people have said different numbers, but it's somewhere, it's somewhere north of 85%.
Okay.
So the effective rate of, some stuff at 35% and those types of things, but the effective rate on all of that comes down to about 5% on all goods and services. Obviously, steel, aluminum, they're at a higher rate and those types of things. But, Canada has tariffed USMCA products. Tariff has banned certain USMCA products from even coming into the country. But we're holding firm and saying, we've got USMCA and, we're not messing with that right now.
So you're saying that Canada's not respecting that agreement, that trade agreement?
Oh, I think they'd be the first ones to admit that. I mean, it's not respecting. I'm saying that they have tariffed USMCA products. All right. They have banned certain USMCA products from coming into the country. You can describe it how you want. I'm just stating the facts those are the facts.
And that's the thing about our liberal government is they are sneaky little rats that have consistently tried to take advantage of America and Americans. And it probably worked for, Democrats that just didn't really pay much attention to that were fine with Canada doing this. But right now, when every penny is being accounted for in America, when they just wiped out so many jobs and funding under Doge, and now they're bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars a month in tariffs from around the world. Every single penny is accounted for. And unfortunately, Canada is now stuck in this position where, hey, we need to literally do a complete revamp of the trade deal or we are going to be economically destroyed. And that's not something that I want to see. But unfortunately, it's something that Canada deserves. Not because of you, not because of me, but because our stupid and borderline, I hate to say it, but I also love to say it, retarded liberal government that have just been abusing this situation for years and years and years. Put yourself in America's shoes. Put yourself in the position of having superiority over another person. And they're just constantly saying, well, you go out to dinner with other people and let's say that you're in a position of power, because that's what America ultimately is. And instead of everyone splitting the checks evenly every single time, everyone just kind of relies on you to pay the bill. Like, wouldn't you feel eventually like, hey, I'm kind of being fucking taken advantage of right now? That's kind of how it's been working with America. So I can very much understand their frustration. It's not me bootlicking America or kissing their ass. It's just objectively, we could literally solve the tariffs, solve the trade war if we just worked with them. Joint economies, bridge that gap. I don't have all the answers as to what that looks like, but I've provided my opinions towards the solution in every single video that I've made and talked about this. Joint military bases on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and up north, where you can have American planes there, American, infrastructure, their military doing surveillance, having, access to our lands. So they can set up their workshops and do what they do. Why not? I mean, right now, there was a plane that was hijacked on Vancouver Island, right? Like a week and a bit ago, right? That like terrorist guy or whatever, and then flew it to Vancouver and they shut down the entire airport because, we don't know what's going to happen. This guy hijacked the plane. He just randomly showed up. He's not supposed to be here, nor is that plane supposed to be here. So what did Canada do? Well, Canada was still sitting on the freaking toilet reading a newspaper, not scrolling on TikTok or Instagram on their phone. They were reading a newspaper. I don't know why that's so funny. What the hell's a newspaper these days? And America, instead of asking permission to fly into our airspace, deployed their fighter jets and flew around Vancouver to see what the hell is going on. They solved the issue for us. They did the surveillance for us because we don't even have the resources to get that shit done in a timely manner. Y'all know why? Because our closest planes were in Cold Lake, Alberta, if I'm not mistaken, and we didn't have a proper way to refuel them. Yeah, we can't even fly our fighter jets from Cold Lake on a swift notice down to Vancouver and back up to Cold Lake without having to refuel them, which we don't even have air buses, air tankers to refuel them in the air. So that's how pathetic Canada is right now. So joint military bases where you have airstrips where you can have American fighter jets with Canadian fighter jets, they're working around the clock full time in case anything ever happens. I would like to feel a little bit more protected in Canada, wouldn't you? What the hell is the harm in that? So bringing that stuff, that mentality to Canada for our politicians to start offering some of that stuff, it would only increase our protection. And then we start bringing in more economic aspects to it, like bringing in other cell phone providers, internet providers, things like that. Our cost of living starts to come down a little bit. We all win in the end. But I don't know, maybe I sound like a freaking nut job. Maybe it's impossible for these things to happen, or maybe it's just a little against the liberal branding to work that closely with America. I don't know. But again, I'm just some idiot in an RV making videos, right?
On Sunday on CBS, you had U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer single out Canada and China as seeing these tariffs not moving and actually increasing because they retaliated. Does that mean that the U.S. did not expect Canada to retaliate in the way that it did?
I think Canada has, again, your government officials, not us, your government officials have said, other than China, we've been the toughest against the United States in terms of retaliatory tariffs. So you have put yourselves, Canadian government officials have put yourselves in the bucket with China. That's not where we put you, but that's how Canadian officials have described themselves.
But did the U.S. not expect retaliation? Did they expect Canada to just take the tariffs and not do anything about it?
Well, I mean, as we've taken a look at the people who had agreements with us, okay, the EU, the UK, Japan, South Korea, you go through these countries, and one of the reasons that, the window of 90 days was created for Mexico was why? The president said it on Friday. We're giving a 90-day exemption or window for Mexico because Mexico has removed all of its retaliatory tariffs during this time frame as we continue negotiations.
So imagine if Canada did that. Imagine if we removed all of the retaliatory tariffs and we said, you know what, we're ready to talk. Imagine if Mark Carney just came out on X or in a video that he made, just looking at the camera in the Parliament building, in his office, and going, hey, you know what, America, we're finally ready to set our differences aside and work with you. Trump, my phone is open. You guys get in touch with us. We'll come down for a meeting when you are prepared, and we'll finally do what needs to be done, because there are bigger threats out there. And at a time right now where the world is so chaotic, Canada and America have the opportunity to work together and be the world's superpower in alliance. Like, why is that so freaking hard? We rely on them for anything anyways. We rely on them for everything. They have to take their planes from a different country and fly over us to make sure that Canada isn't going to freaking do something crazy because our dudes are on the toilet reading a newspaper. I don't know why I find that so funny, but it's absolutely hilarious to me. Anyways, I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think that the Liberal government is even capable of doing something like that? Or am I just like cuckoo for imagining these things as a potential reality? Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you later. Bye for now.